Good evening, everybody. It's this is Matt Den. It is 5 o'clock. Haley, I'll rely on you to let me know when we have a quorum.
Sure, sounds good.
And Senator Lockman is running a little behind. She's in Dover, so she'll take over when she gets here. But you're stuck with me until then. And actually, Haley, looking at the agenda, it looks like we only really have one item that requires a vote, which is the minutes, right? Do we have anything else that we needed to vote on tonight?
Nope.
Okay. Well, why don't we just move the minutes? We'll just skip that, and you can let me know if we get to a quorum, and we can take care of that. But just to be respectful of everyone's time, why don't we get going, and we can come back to that. So if you wanted to just start with the welcome slides, and we can just go from there.
Sure, sounds good. So welcome everyone. As normal, please keep yourself muted when you're not speaking. You should have gotten a notice that this meeting is being recorded, and we post it to YouTube. And if the consortium members could please type your name in the chat so we can take account of roll call. Thank you. Great.
Thank you, Haley. And as indicated, we'll skip over B for now, and we'll just jump right to C, which was something that I was going to be handling anyway, which was just to try to give everyone a brief update on what was going on with the funding and the operations of the programs that the two largest programs in terms of dollar amounts that we had recommended for the FY22 budget, which is the budget year that we're in currently, and then how that plays into the discussions that we're having for the FY23 budget for the same programs, which is the budget that the General Assembly is going to consider in June. So very quickly on the early childhood, we had talked about this at a prior meeting. I think the General Assembly had funded $2.3 million based on our recommendation to try to provide for 3- and 4-year-old children who were in the feeder patterns for the elementary schools in the state, which are in Wilmington, that have the highest percentages of children classified as low income, had recommended that we provide $2.3 million to try to provide full day, high quality pre-K services for each of those children so that they arrived in kindergarten with everything that having that type of preparation at ages 3 and 4 provides for you. The Department of Education put out an RFP for those services, and there were four programs that successfully got funds from them, all of them high quality providers. What we found from that first round of responses was that those providers for the first year only applied to expand existing slots from part day slots to full day slots. So in other words, a large number of kids, 110, who were only getting part day services, who were in the feeder patterns for those elementary schools, are now getting full day services as a result of the funding. But we were not able to have folks bid on providing additional slots for kids who were not currently getting any services. And the feedback that we got as to why that was, why the providers who did respond to the RFPs didn't ask to expand slots, why we didn't have more providers respond, was primarily that there was some uncertainty about whether the funding was going to be permanent and ongoing. So the good news is that that $3.7 million as opposed to 2.3 is in the governor's proposed budget that the legislature is currently looking at, and that money is all supposed to be is proposed to be in operating funds. So that issue should be addressed, and we're optimistic that with that greater level of certainty about the program being a long-term one rather than just a one-off, that we're going to have more participation next year. and more providers who are willing to add slots. So short-term good news for those kids who are getting the full day services, and we think long-term good news in terms of the ability to expand. On the wraparound services, we had funding that was put in the budget, part operating funds, part one-time funds, to allow elementary schools that served elementary aged students, whether they were elementary or combined elementary and middle schools, to apply to provide before school, after school, summer services, and in-school wellness center services. 3 schools were the successful applicants for those funds: Bayard, Bancroft, and Kumba Academy. And in some ways, sort of parallel story to the early childhood funds. All good programs, all providing services for kids that they were not previously receiving, but not exactly as we had envisioned it when we proposed it. And when we asked the 3 successful schools, what were the major holdbacks to them doing more of what we had hoped for, the response that we got was largely the same, that there were concerns about the reliability of the funding going into the future, and about their ability to make hires and make investments, not knowing whether the funding was going to be ongoing. So same concern, and also same good news, which is that in the governor's proposed budget for next year, he has proposed $7.1 million for wraparound services in the operating budget. And again, that's a substantially larger amount than in the prior year, and it's proposed to be in the operating budget. So there will not be a concern that it's a one-year and done type program. So as with the early childhood, we're pleased with what's currently being provided, but really optimistic that going forward, because this funding is more permanent and at a higher level, that we're going to see even better results going forward. So that is an update, and on the FY22 on those 2 major programs, and where we are hopeful it's going in FY23. And I'll stop if anyone has any questions. Happy to take them, and otherwise we can keep on going. Okay. The next item on the agenda is the Wilmington Learning Collaborative update, and Haley, I'm not sure who was scheduled to provide that.
I know John Sheehan's here, Secretary Holodick, and I think Jim Simmons is also here. So whoever was planning to give the update from their team, I'll let you guys go ahead.
Awesome, thank you. I think I froze there, sorry. Thank you so much, Matt and Haley, and hello, good evening, members of the consortium. So it has been a little while since we were with you last, and so I think have some excitement. Sorry, my computer keeps freezing here. So since we last spoke to the consortium, we had the 3 school boards took votes in January and February to move forward and formally explore the Wilmington Learning Collaborative. And so we are really excited about that and grateful for their partnership. As I think was presented at the last consortium meeting, in the governor's recommended budget, in addition to the funding for the consortium, there's also a set aside of $7 million in the proposed budget for the Wilmington Learning Collaborative schools, and really excited to have that. And as was just talked about in the operating budget, one of the pieces of feedback we've gotten pretty consistently is that in the past there have been sort of one-time infusions and then they've gone away, and so folks put really meaningful programs in place and then they're no longer there. And so we had a really busy and I think great month of March. We started meeting with the districts and working through the MOU process and the components that we've heard time and time again in our nearly 200, we'll hit 200 meetings very soon. And so grateful for all the feedback we've gotten. And so we've started to work with the districts. At the same time, last month, we held 6 public engagement sessions. We were at Stubbs, we were at Harlan, we had a virtual meeting, we were at the Teen Warehouse, we were at the Wilmington Public Library, and Maria, who I know is on here, hosted us at the Latin American Community Center. These were really, I think, engaging events, and I know a number of folks on the consortium were at a few of those, and I also see Mary Shorsey on this call, who is at, I think, 3 of them. So appreciate her engagement. And heard a lot of great feedback, and we had a suggestion from Safe Schools to have them be a little bit different than we had been having them. Instead of us kind of talking at folks in an auditorium, we had small group conversations. We provided childcare and food, and really, I think, had more meaningful discussions about what folks really want to see in the Wilmington Learning Collaborative structure and in city schools. And so really appreciated those conversations. I also see Kathleen Baker on here, who hosted us at the League of Women Voters Forum to talk about the collaborative. And so we're continuing to, again, meet with our partners. I think that the meetings have been really productive and really collaborative. And after spring break, which I know folks are looking forward to, we're going to have another round of meetings, and hopefully we'll have some version of a document to kind of show folks and talk through at those sessions. And so again, moving forward, and really appreciate the partnership of everyone. I'm going to kick it to Dr. Holodick and Jim, but just wanted to share one really, I think, high point for me, at least. On Tuesday, I had the privilege of meeting with the Teen Warehouse Executive Committee, and they had been members of our small group conversation at the Teen Warehouse and engaging. These were 9th, 10th, and 11th graders, and we had really amazing conversations with them about what they've experienced in schools and how they would sort of design an approach to make schools as engaging and well-rounded as possible. And so for the many of you who have pushed us to continue to engage educators and continue to engage students and make sure their voices are key pieces of this, I appreciate that push, because those conversations have been really meaningful. And so as we work forward, we'll certainly continue to keep the consortium apprised, and I'm going to kick it to Dr. Holodick and Jim to fill in anything that I missed out on.
Thanks, John. I think you covered it quite well with this update. I was in attendance at both Latin American Community Centers as well as the warehouse on that Saturday a few weeks back, and I totally concur that the students and staff have really given us a great deal of informative feedback that is going to end up being embedded within the plan, the MOU, the plan that ultimately derives from this. The only other thing I would add is how transparent, we are trying to be with all of this. I mean, typically in a negotiation or in an MOU process, it's a few people in a room hammering it out, and certainly we're doing that, but it's just not a small group. It's actually a pretty sizable group. I've never been involved in a process where you have that many people working on MOUs, but then again, it is 3 school districts, so I imagine to be expected. But it's very transparent. We're trying to give everyone updates like this, so that as we move toward an agreement that everyone can sign and then the planning begin, there's just a lot of commitment to it, not just in the districts, not just in the schools that have signed on, but in the communities that should be ultimately impacted by this collaborative. So, Jim?
Yeah, thank you, John and Mark, and thank you for having me and us. The only thing I would add, I think they've covered everything, is just reiteration of the willingness of the people from the 3 districts, collaborative efforts. Even as we're trying to figure out the things that we want to move the needle on in one direction or another, it's with a collaborative approach, and try to how can we do what's best for the situation, in this case, education in the city of Wilmington and for students. So I think I'd be remiss if I just didn't reiterate that it has been completely, again, this collaborative effort of working together with something that's new to everyone. And so I think it's important for all to hear that as well.
Happy to take questions if I don't know what the schedule looks like, but we're certainly here if folks want to follow up now or after the meeting.
If there are any consortium members who have any questions, we're doing pretty well on time. Okay, well,
I have a question.
Who is this?
This is Maria Matos.
Hey, Maria, go ahead.
On the memorandum of understanding between the districts, I know that the collaboration calls for wraparound services. Is that going to be part of the memorandum?
Yeah, yes, because it is come up at every meeting, and also part of the approach is to, push resources and flexibility down to the school level. And so we absolutely are going to put that's a necessity in there, but the specifics are going to have to be worked out at the school level. We don't want to tell, educators at one school how to sort of meet those needs, because those folks are in front of students every day and know best. But we are absolutely going to insist that these are community schools, community hubs, and meet the whole child need, because we heard that loud and clear at each of our meetings. And I think the meeting you hosted us at was a really great example of that feedback.
John, can I just come in here? Maria, thank you for the question. Wraparound services will be an essential element to this plan. I think I speak confidently for everyone who's involved in this process, because to John's point, this has come up not only in the community meetings, but the meetings that we've been having in the MOU process. Everyone recognizes that while some of the schools that'll be part of the collaborative already have strong relationships with CBOs, there's always an opportunity to grow those relationships and expand services. If we don't have that in this plan, then shame on us, because it'll fall short, far short of what we're aiming for. Thanks, Maria.
Well, yeah, I know it's in the plan. I was just hoping that it would be in the MOU, so it'll be official, and no one will leave that point out.
Definitely.
But I'm hearing it's not part of the official MOU.
It will be a part of the official MOU. Yes, definitely.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Maria. Thank you again for hosting us at LACC.
You're welcome.
If there aren't any other questions for Secretary Holodick or John or Mr. Simmons, we can move on to the work group reports. And the first is social determinants, and I think Jeff and Ray are both with us. I don't know which of you wanted to give an update.
Matt, real quick, we do have quorum if we wanted to get the minutes out of the way, but we can also do it later after the updates, whatever you think is best.
Oh, well, why don't we go ahead? And I don't have them in front of me. Do you want to, which minutes are we approving?
They're from the February 10th meeting. Everyone should have them in their email. And if this lets me back up, yeah. And I believe Izzy has joined us as well.
I have. Can you hear me okay? I don't know how my connection is. Hopefully it's all right.
Yep, we can hear you.
Great.
Want me to turn things over, Senator? We're just approving those.
You could, maybe after the minutes, you could do that. I'm making sure I have my notes here.
Are you sure?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, you got it.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the February minutes? Somebody please do this so I don't fail the one.
So moved, sorry.
Is there a second?
This is Tika, I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Any abstentions? The minutes are approved, Senator.
Right, way to go. All right. Looks like we've had a very productive agenda in the 20 minutes that I missed. I apologize, everyone. It is a session day. So it looks like we have come to the point of our agenda where we are hearing from our working groups. And I think I saw Jeff and I heard Ray. So I think you guys are up first with social determinants to give us an update. Oh, no, I am incorrect about that. All right, I see we have settlement work group first. So I can see Aaron. Don't know if Chuck is here as well, but I will give the floor over to you all to walk us through what your last 2 months have generated.
Good evening. Next slide, please. And great work hearing about the investment in education. And also glad of those recipients that are there. Very excited about that, and also look forward to future work. So since our last meeting, March 28th, we started discussing, sorry, that's my dog wanting to chime in, work from Shannon Griffin and the ACLU about a resolution joined by Bill Doolittle. The first is a resolution synopsis. The current resolution reconstitutes DE SPAC. So DSPAC, Delaware Special Education Strategic Planning Advisory Council, establishes a stakeholder educational equity council to provide independent oversight for the ombudsperson program and support the effectiveness of Delaware's data system for the purpose of enhancing educational equity. We did submit that to everybody. We're not going to vote on that tonight, and we'll have an updated version for the entire Reading Consortium at a later point. There was also a bill overview, and so that was shared with our committee. And then we have been discussing that, and that too should be shared at a later date. And my dog is still looking at me. Next slide, please. Bills under this FY23 settlement requirements. And so we have gone through what it takes for the settlement. And so we've gone through FY22, FY21. And so for fiscal year 23, we are looking at funding not less than $35 million. So an increase in opportunity funding, provide $5 million for mental health and reading supports. We do see that is on target. With the new budget, K-3 Spec Ed continues to be in effect thanks to the special education HB 86 that went through last year. And so we're so glad that was passed. And so we're still on target. You get the next one. Early education, we're looking forward to FY24 ECAP being doubled to 12.2, but for right now we are where we are. Teacher recruitment, $4 million committed in addition to FY21 allocations. This is important to make sure that we can recruit and to retain the best staff in the state of Delaware. And so that is work being done at DOE. Look forward to seeing more of that, as well as the economic impact of that. The ombudsperson, that has moved forward. Equity statement for capital projects. We discussed that at our last meeting, showing you the report card. And the independent funding assessment is still moving forward. We think it's insufficient funding though. That is the settlement updates. Oh, next slide, sorry. The governor's proposed FY23 budget. We saw a 19.8 for Reading Consortium and Wilmington Learning Collaborative. So that is something we highlighted. The ombudsperson funded at $1 million, as was outlined in the settlement. Independent funding assessment has been funded at $1 million, and $4 million for teacher recruitment and retention is in the budget. Opportunity funding was supposed to be bare minimum of $35 million, so we're glad to see it is at $38 million, in line with the settlement and above that. So we do see some excellent marks there. That's it from the settlement work group.
Great, thank you. Checking my participant list to see if, do we have any questions or comments? I see Councilman Street with his hand up, and I'll try to scroll through and see if anyone else is waving their hand, but if we could use the hand function. Councilman Street?
Thank you, Senator. I just want to make a correction with the settlement. I fully understand that the $1 million for the ombudsperson program is what is in the budget, what the governor put in the budget. There is no amount in the settlement.
Okay.
And I only say that because the $1 million is far less than what I think is needed and what I envision. But the challenge with that is we did not settle on a specific amount.
Thank you for that, Councilman. Did anyone have any question on that? Not hearing any. Aaron, did you have a response for that, or?
I defer to Councilman Street on
Yes.
issues of the settlement, so I have a response to that. But I
Correct.
would like to see an increase in the funding there. So I'll say that.
Okay, fair enough.
Senator, this is Maria Matos. I'm on the phone. I
Yes,
couldn't zoom in, so I don't
that's
have
okay.
the hand up function.
That's
But
okay.
I just wanted
Please.
to touch, thank you. I heard double the ECAP budget. Is that a done deal, or I wasn't sure what I heard?
I can clarify that. That is that in FY 23-24, so FY 24, the ECAP funding should double to 12.2. As of right now, that is not in effect for FY 23. So we're just calling out the different parts of the settlement.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right, looking for other hands or listening for voices.
Senator,
Oh, yes, sir, Councilman.
I just want to make clear that the number of ECAP slots are clear in the settlement. They have to double, but it's also important for everybody to understand that half of those slots have to be in community-based organizations. And that's part of the settlement.
Okay. Thank you. That's really helpful. All right. Anything further? All right, hearing nothing, I'm going to now come back to Superintendent Menzer and Ray Jones Avery to give us an update on what they've been working on for the social determinants work group.
Thanks, Senator Lockman. I'm gonna be presenting for our work group this evening. For the last several months, our group has been working to create the equity data dashboard with the specific goal to highlight how Wilmington students are doing in school. Our intended outcome is to act on this data so that we can create more equitable opportunities and outcomes for students. Our specific target audience, as we're going through this brainstorming process, is our parents and community members. And we have been working with Dr. Adrian Peoples from the Department of Education and Katie Semmel from the Data Service Center, who have been kind of leading the work group through a brainstorming process of what this dashboard could look like and what data points are readily available that can be brought together to bear for the community. We're also exploring not just quantitative data, but also qualitative data points that we could bring forward in this dashboard. The most recent question that has been posed to the work group is to define the city of Wilmington. It was important as we started to engage in this work, as Dr. Peoples pointed out, everybody somewhat defines it a little differently. So for our work, we're now moving forward. Our next meeting in May, we'll begin to talk about what are the different definitions of Wilmington, election boundaries, neighborhood boundaries, zip code boundaries, all those factors to try to zero in on what it is we're talking about when we say students in the city of Wilmington, so that we're clear and explicit. That's basically, it's been an ongoing work group, true work group, a lot of conversation, a lot of dialogue, and a lot of brainstorming.
Excellent. We have any questions or comments from the consortium members? Okay. All right, well, great job. All right, let me see. So I think we can move right along. And I know that I saw Noel, perhaps Representative Smith is here as well, although I think he might be on the floor. So Noel, would you like to walk us through how things are going with the educators work group? I think we've got some progress from last time.
Yeah, and Representative Smith wasn't able to make it tonight, so he just asked me to speak for both of us. We've had a lot of progress happen in the last few weeks. So we were meeting with, and I have to say thank you to Dr. Rouser, who also put us in touch with Dr. Johnson from DSU, who had done a lot of work on recruiting and retaining Black male educators. She gave us a lot of information, and we met with the Department of Education, who was really collaborative. It was a really, really positive and collaborative meeting. So we planned on, because there was a really short turnaround time in order to spend this money for FY23. We wanted to make sure that we didn't take on part of the recommendations that would involve, really extensive planning, because we wanted to make sure we didn't rush that and misappropriate the money in a way that wasn't going to be helpful. So what we thought was the best thing for spending right now in order for the FY23 school year was towards our Grow Our Own program. So the Grow Our Own program, we wanted to, for the highest leverage, really think about critical shortage teachers. And when we say critical shortage, we mean by race and ethnicity and by language. So those teachers who are representative of the school population in high need schools. We specifically were targeting Black and Latino male educators as well. And we've done a lot of work around this. There are a lot of people in the community who are working as paraprofessionals, substitute teachers, behavior interventionists who are interested in getting certified. And we've shown through our research.
Sorry, I clicked something and I don't know what I did.
That's okay, Haley. I was just going to ramble, but I mean, I can still talk. I know what I was saying. So while you're fixing that. So basically, we felt like that's the fastest and most reliable way through our research is to have people who are already invested in that community, already know the kids, already want to become teachers, to just get their certification, to help them to get their certification, right? So we are going to apply that money, those people who are already there and want to get their certification to be able to attend programs that already exist here in Delaware, and that they would get the funding to be able to do that. So we're right now kind of identifying how many of those people we can fund this year and exactly what our criteria are going to be. We'll be meeting again pretty soon to figure that out. And of course, we have another recommendation around the whole school PD program for teacher retention. We decided for this that we're going to meet after July 1st to create that plan and release the RFP in fall of 2022 with the idea that it would be rolled out starting with the summer PD in 2023. And again, when we say PD, that's not necessarily just teachers in a PD. Some of the things that we talked about with Dr. Johnson were, kind of groups of critical shortage teachers being able to work together with each other, to be able to voice their concerns, and also admin training and PDs in order to help with teacher retention, mentorship programs for newer teachers. So all of these things that would help with retention. So the one is really around recruitment and the other is around retention. And I'd be happy to take any questions that anyone has.
Thank you, Noelle. It's great to see that progress. Do we have any questions or comments from members on how things are going? Okay. All right, we'll take no news, no comment. That's good. That's a good sign. I know you've put a lot of work into this, so just really want to thank you, Noelle in particular, and Representative Smith as well. Okay, and let me see here, just one moment. We do have Councilman Street with us. Representative Chakwocha had a conflict and is probably also on the floor right now. And I think we do, yes, thanks to Haley as well. But we do have some updates on this. Hang on just a moment. Let's see if I have the notes here. But Councilman Street, did you have the notes to report on where we are? Nope.
I'm sorry, I was muted. I
Oh,
didn't
yes.
I didn't take any notes.
Oh, okay.
And nobody's really, a lot of people on this are not going to want to hear what I said. So how do you want to report it?
Well, I can go ahead and
I mean, I can report it myself, but in terms of the discussion that we had.
well, I think we just want to do a high level overview of operationally where we're at, and I'm happy to do that if you'd like, and then you could add any flavor that you like. Is that okay? So I think, you know, I'm not sure we have a much more concrete update, but, you know, as we know, Councilman Street and Representative Quocha are going to be leading this effort. And as we've discussed, the first step to sort of bring redistricting back into focus and some of the related issues is to refile the initial legislation that gave Reading the ability to do that work. As of now, there's not going to be a formal working group or committee structure, but a focus on developing a research plan and a work plan to figure out how to operationalize exactly what Councilman Street just referenced, was the discussions that have been being had between the co-chairs about what some of the options might look like. And this entity would also, I think, be taking a look at monitoring of the learning collaborative and looking at potential opportunities to just make sure that those projects are cognizant of one another. But looks like we will be looking to future meetings to be able to offer more concrete updates. So those are my notes. Councilman Street, did you want to add anything? Agree, disagree?
No, it's no need in me putting gas on the fire that hadn't been lit yet.
All right, that sounds fair. It's definitely going to be some great dialogue, and I hope you know, some great research and work to come over the next. Well, we'll see once we have the work plan together what the timeline will look like, but look forward to bringing that back up with all of you soon. Do we have any questions from the consortium about the redistricting and governance work revival?
The only thing, Senator,
Yes, Councilman.
Representative Chakotcha has identified some people that are going to work on and be part of the committee, and I think he's got a good representative team, including school people, school board members, and elected officials.
That's a great point to add. So even if it may not sort of look like a traditional committee style, I think there's certainly a list, which I expect to be an expansive one of folks who will be consulted on that effort of guiding research and the work plan for sure. But you know, we'll revisit that at the next meeting in terms of what that looks like. Technically, we don't have any committees on the consortium. It's all working groups with deliverables attached to them, but more to come.
I'm sorry.
A
working group, yes.
Which right now consists of the chairs, but has a list of folks who will be obviously consulted in an advisory capacity.
As
yes,
we're talking
Shelley.
about this work and research, etc. I just I can't help but think about the communications that have happened over the past few months and what kind of communications we'll need to make sure are really clear in the community when we talk about redistricting and just as certain things may get out in the community as we talk about districts working closer together than maybe ever with this MOU process. And then speaking of the same communities and redistricting, I just draw our attention to the communications. And I think we said hundreds of communications. I just wonder about any mixed communications that could come out as we have another line of communication starting around this and which way communities believe their children are going to be served. Yeah, I just hate to see any momentum lost along those lines too.
Right, due to not sort of effectively and transparently communicating with the impacted communities. Is that who you're speaking of specifically?
I mean, I just think communication is everything here. And when people get sound bites of things, they may not get the depth of the conversations we're having. They'll get pieces. And I'm not sure if those pieces will be really clear when there's been so many other communications around. It's just a concern. I don't know if anybody else shares that, but communications are the make or break in any of this. And I'm not clear. I'm not sure if families, once a lot of this language starts making their way to families, if they'll be really clear about exactly what's going on. So it's just a caution.
No, I appreciate that. I think we've had some good conversations about that in the past, how to improve on that. I know Tika in particular has had some great ideas of how to make sure that we keep folks engaged on research and reform ideas that we're doing that are going to impact, obviously the families that we're trying to better serve. Okay.
Tizzy,
Yes.
Joe Jones asked something in the chat.
Oh yeah, I was actually just typing in. I think you asked about membership. So just to clarify, there's not sort of a membership list for a committee, which we generally eschew that term, or a working group for this particular effort at this time. We have our co-chairs, Councilman Street and Representative Chikwocha, who are generating a list of I think folks who will be consulted with on this work, as opposed to having some kind of a traditional committee structure of meetings to hash things out. But again, as we mentioned, sort of the scope of research and the work plan are in development with the co-chairs, and Matt and I are involved to the degree that they are working with us, which is great. And so we'll have more information on that, but I don't expect there to be a set and standing committee list. We can certainly look to be transparent about, who's being engaged in those conversations and research. I know that's kind of an ambiguous answer, but the best thing I can say is there's not a standing committee with a membership list. Okay. All right. Hopefully we gave more clarity than confusion, but we'll keep taking it step by step on that one. Any other questions or comments on that? Okay, what's next? Okay. So we knew that we wanted to touch on the legislative session. I think we've already heard some folks talking about, different things that were bubbling up in their working groups along the lines of resolutions and such. We did not want to, from the chair position, to present you with a list of things we thought were relevant, but of course there's always many relevant pieces of legislation moving around the legislature, and at this time of year moving very quickly. You may have seen news about various pieces of legislation, or even, we've probably had conversations about them in the last couple of weeks. But of course, we want to make sure to give consortium members an opportunity to help us decide if, as a consortium, we should take position. I think if those of us who are legislators on this entity decide to run legislation, that's our legislation that we're working, but it is a collective decision for us to make as to whether or not the Reading Consortium as a body is taking a stand on something or wants to take some kind of a formal statement. And so we just wanted to remind folks that the procedure that we've basically followed in past years for how that works is that we like for recommendations for positions and action on legislative measures to come through the working groups. And I think I've had a conversation with a couple of you about that. So, obviously the suggestion would be to think about if the working group that you are involved with is the appropriate venue for that, to bring it to the chairs of those work groups for consideration. And then, once that work group is able to make a decision as a group as to whether or not to support or oppose a piece of legislation, that can be elevated to us. And I know, Haley, we had talked about our ability, since there's always lag time between working group meetings and certainly between full body meetings. Did we get our official opinion on whether or not these were decisions that we could make through email, for example?
Yes, we did actually get a response on that, and Aaron recommended not voting by email.
Okay.
Yeah. So it would have to be a meeting that we pull together with the quorum of consortium members.
All right. So just bear that in mind. If there's something that you would like for us to take action on, we probably would need to pull together a special meeting in order to do that, especially because by the time we have our next general body meeting, a lot of these bills may already have moved through their whole life cycle. So, or not, but just something to keep in mind if there's something you're aware of that you really want other consortium members to be paying attention to and for us to collectively act on. Yes, Aaron Goldstein, not Aaron Bass. Thank you. It was Aaron Goldstein who gave that legal opinion.
Thank you for the clarification.
Although we would trust your opinion on that, Aaron. Okay, any questions or comments on legislation? You can certainly feel free to reach out to me and Matt on things anyway, or to Haley. But we would of course recommend using the working groups kind of as the crucible. Okay, next up. Oh, wow, okay. Moved pretty quickly there. All right, well, awesome. So now we're at the point of having our public comment. If we can, feel free to raise your hand or to put a comment in the chat if you have a comment to offer. Otherwise, if you can't do that, you can, sort of speak up to draw our attention. And I know I see Bill's hand. So Bill, ready for your 3 minutes?
Sure. Just have a couple quick technical clarifications on the slides from the settlement committee.
Oh, okay.
With the resolution, it identified the reconstituted body as DSPAC, DESPAC. That was correct. The verbiage said it was a special education council. That is not correct. That would be CESPAC. DSPAC is a Delaware State Parent Advisory Council, which is a Title I council. Second technical point, in the review of compliance, it indicated that there was $1 million for the ombudsman program. And while that was what was appropriated, that is not what has been contracted. Less than that, half of that has been contracted. So unless the Joint Finance Committee adds that funding stream to one of the streams that gets rolled over from year to year, that program will lose over $500,000 July 1st. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Okay. Do we have any other public commenters at this time? All right, okay, well, next slide. Do we have our next meeting information or next meetings?
No, we don't have our next meeting date yet. It's going to be in June, I'm assuming, at some point.
Yes.
But Margie, I know I saw your message. Let me know if you would like me to ask it to the group. Margie was just
Haley, I wasn't able to send it to Tizzy for some reason, but I just wanted clarification, Tizzy. You had mentioned that if we want to, I guess, recommend either support or opposition to legislation, and we need to do it through the work groups, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So
yeah.
so then I guess Haley was about to say that she doesn't have any work groups scheduled right now. So I just want to be sure that I guess I need to know exactly which route to take so that we can have those conversations. I think that there are, bills in the pipeline that we need to take a position on as a group.
Yes, I agree. And so, well, I think we do have some scheduled, even though we don't have a slide with them. I don't think we have, is that accurate, Haley, that we don't have any working group meetings scheduled coming up?
I just put the two next ones in the chat for May.
Okay.
We don't have a full body meeting scheduled right now. We've been doing 2 months, but if it makes more sense, if there's like pressing legislation to meet in a month, then we can talk about that too.
Right. Or we can meet provisionally for a vote. I agree. That's why I was hoping that we would be able to do some of those things virtually, but we have a lawyer that we consult with for a reason. And so obviously that will make it a little bit more difficult. But so we do have social determinants on May 16th, settlement on May 23rd. And I think, settlement in general has a bit of an outward and I think sort of the watchdog focus, perhaps, I don't know if you don't mind me saying so, Aaron, I think a good venue for things that may not seem to fit neatly into a category that we might want to just speak to generally for equity. So if that, something I would say reach out maybe to Aaron to see if the bills that you're thinking of are ones that could want to take on. But again, I think we should consider, be willing to maybe see if it's possible to hop on a Zoom, more provisionally if there's something that needs quick action, because obviously our current schedule doesn't lend itself to that. But I don't want that to be perceived as we're trying to evade taking action. I really would like us to take positions on things. But, I think in the meantime, certainly email Haley if you have particular piece of legislation already in mind that you think need to be considered. And then I think then Haley can help support getting that into the right, sort of working group conversation so that a position can be elevated to the larger body. So I'm not averse to having the conversations as a larger body. I just don't want us to sort of be taking a top-down approach to, what bills we should be addressing and how. Generally speaking, when we make recommendations, we like to take it from our broader membership. So Haley, I think you had your email on the slide, but maybe, and I'm sure everyone has your email because you're the one who communicates with us all, but if you want to put it in there again, maybe that would help just to sort of expedite the process if you have something that's on your mind right now that you want to make sure that we're getting moving. Is that helpful, Margie?
Sorry. Yeah, I'm just following up with Aaron to find out if that's the right group and what we need to do. Thank you.
Okay. Keep us posted. Okay. That was a good question. Anything else? All right. Well, hearing nothing else, I will go ahead and accept a motion for us to adjourn for their bi-monthly full body meeting. And looking forward to seeing what we can do over the course of the next couple of months here. And we will try to get that June meeting date scheduled sooner rather than later, and potentially look at maybe a little earlier into May if it looks like we need to take some votes on some things. But other than that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Matt. What was that, Aaron? Second?
That's a second to Matt's first.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you all for taking the time and for everything that you do in between. And I'm sure I will see you all in various places between now and our next full body meeting. But thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night. Thank you.
Good evening.
Thank you.